You can see it is still a little snowy. It's melting, thankfully, but it's still snowy, icy out here. It's actually only like 25 degrees here. So it's not exactly melting as fast as it could. You can hear, I still got this stupid cough. I've had it now for like 4 weeks almost. But I came down here at the video today. Again, it's not a lot of stuff I can do, but I figured I'd come down here and actually talk to you guys a little bit about different pieces of equipment, and kind of especially for guys that are just starting out. I've talked about kind of planter versus a drill. I actually just had this conversation with my cousin on our podcast, Talk Dirt to Me, literally on our most recent episode. But so I was going to kind of go over that real quick. So this is my 1245. First, I need you to hit that like button, hit subscribe, do all those things. Comment below some stuff you'd like for me to talk about. This video is going to be kind of helping out the guy that's just starting out. Talk about kind of the planters and routes to go, and then also the poor man's shed I'm going to mention. But let's get into this. So this is my planter. This is my 1245. My dad has a 21 something that's over there. This is his combine. This is his shed. I don't have a shed, and I'm going to get into that, kind of what I do here in just a little bit. Luckily for me, I'm still able to put, like my combine is in their other shed. A lot of my stuff is in their sheds, but I just don't have the shed. I can't afford to put one up yet. It's got a nice flat tire. I just noticed that. I had to replace the both of these inner tires because I was planting a field last year and I ran some stuff into the tires and it punctured the tires. So it's probably something sticking in that tire somewhere. Actually might be. What is this? Oh, no. It's got a hole or a leak somewhere. The planter I'm going to compare it to is right here. So it's kind of cool that they're right here because this is an easy side by side. There's my 1245. This is my dad's 5400 soybean special. This is like the quintessential starter planter drill. It's a drill is what they call it. And essentially, it is controlled spillage, is what it is. So the way this thing works, you got your hoppers up here. It has 2 bulk fill areas there, right here. Still a few little things in there. But you just fill that up, and the seed will fall down into right there. Goes down into them tubes. They've actually disconnected. See a bunch of them. Okay, they did that. I see they did that so that it wouldn't, because these tubes can actually end up sagging. They get stretched out. You have a lot of issues. So I see they disconnected them so that it wouldn't do that. You set your rate right here. And there's one on both sides. So you can adjust. That's your population is what we would call it. You know, you shoot for around here, probably around 135 to 140,000. But a drill is basically controlled spillage is what I've heard it referred to. Because as you're running, and the good thing about a drill, as long as that chain right there is turning, this thing will plant. Now this one even has a monitor. It'll tell you when a row is not planting. It has seed sensors right here. It'll tell you if it's not planting. And it's pretty interesting because the actual planting part where it puts the seed in the ground, it's really not much different on this drill than it is even on my 1245. Like the red planters have stayed pretty similar. Like as far as their closing system, their opening system, they're still pretty much the same. I think they might have changed it up some on like the 21 series like my dad has, but as far as on my 1245, it's still pretty similar. One of the big differences is this has these springs right here. Those are your downforce. My planter has pneumatic downforce. and it is 100 times better than spring. That's what one of the things you run into on this drill is if you're planting in really hard ground, it's gonna have a hard time getting through the ground. Now this is a no-till machine right here though. I mean, you can plant really no-till. I would always encourage somebody, if they're starting out, they're looking at like a green one or whatever, they want to drill, get a red one, get a 5400. The part that makes these drills so great is this apparatus right here. This tire and that tire over there, there's a chain running here and a chain running there, and it runs to that shaft that runs along. That is what runs the whole drill. As long as these tires are turning, this thing will plant. Whereas like my 1245 here, the brains of this planter are in here. There is, you can see there's a big ECU. There's all kinds of ECUs, hoses, electronics and stuff running on this thing. You can have an electrical issue that'll shut this planter down. You ain't gonna have that happen on that drill. So that is one of the nice things. And I will say I've never used a Kinsey planter, but I think that they are still chain drive, possibly. You can see right here, this is pretty much the only electrical stuff you got on this planter, or this drill. This hooks up to your monitor that tells you when a row is planting or not planting. These hydraulic hoses, that's for your markers, because you can run your markers on this. If you have GPS on your tractor, you don't need to use the markers. We didn't use them, so we just pin them up. But it also does have an acre counter right here. It's a really simple system. I mean, again, it's just like my 1245 here, as far as most of that goes. But great, great starter no-till planter. Keep calling it a planter. It is what it is. You use it to plant seed. It's called a drill. If you're watching and you're offended that I keep calling it a planter, get over yourself. It's a 20-foot wide. You're gonna want a 20-foot wide one. 15, it's just too small. It's just gonna take you forever. Now this one, we run it 3-point hitch. It's 20-foot wide. That's gonna be the width of most roads. So it is kind of a pain in the butt to move. As huge as my 1245 is, I would rather pull this thing down the road 100 times than move this thing down the road. You can probably find one of these soybean specials, I would say for around 7 or 8 grand, a 20-footer. They might be around 10 now. Equipment has gone crazy, but you can get one of these pretty cheap. And the thing about a red one, and one with this age, is you can rebuild everything. Like everything on it can be rebuilt. It's a good winter project to rebuild your planter. But let me talk about my 1245 and kind of, you know, if you're just starting out, you're probably not going to buy a 1245. This planter, I bought this planter 2 years ago, I think, and I think it was like $95,000 or $100,000 when I bought it. It was used. It's a 2018 model. It only had like 6,000 acres on it when I bought it. One of the best perks to this 1245 versus the 1200 is this right here. It's got a PTO shaft on it. The 1200s, you see this big old pump right here? Used to, on the 1200s, you basically had to bolt that pump onto your tractor, onto the PTO. Well, Case, they helped us out and put a PTO drive on it on the 1245s. So now this goes to the tractor. The downside to that is you can't turn as sharp because it'll put the shaft in a bind, and you can kind of, there's a notorious chatter that 1245s like this make, and it's when people are turning too sharp. And we have actually tore up a drive shaft before by turning too sharp. Oh, it was my dad's old 1245 that he had. Pretty much the same design as on the drill, except, I don't know if you can see them from here. Let's see. See, this is my air. It's got a little bitty pump on it, but it runs your airbags because it has pneumatic downforce. There it is, you can see it. That's your airbag. And you can adjust how much air pressure you run. When I'm no-tilling, well, that's pretty much all I do with this. When I no-till and plant, I'm running probably 100 to 120 pounds of downforce. I planted into some stuff that was really thick, and I did crank it up to about 200 pounds of downforce to push those openers down into the ground to really cut the ground open. And it did make a big difference. Now last year, I put all new opening discs on this. So it's got brand new openers, and I changed the closers. I put these, they're caved in inwards. The factory ones concave out, and they're smooth. I put these jagged ones that cave inwards, and I'm gonna tell you what, it makes a huge difference. I became a believer in these aftermarket closers this year because I follow a lot of no-till farming stuff, listen to a lot of podcasts on no-till farming, and those guys all talked about the aftermarket closing wheels that make such a big difference. And now you can put these on a drill like that. You could buy a 5400. You could put these on there. I bought these from Shoop. Now it's not a particularly cheap upgrade. I want to say it was several $1,000s, but it wouldn't be as expensive on that because I don't remember how many units are on that, but it's 20 foot wide. This is 40 foot wide. When you're no-tilling into heavy ground, they close the trench. One of the things about the red planter, I kind of compare them to an AK-47. You could basically find an AK-47 that's been like buried, pull it out of the dirt, kick the bolt open, and it's so, things are kind of loose in there, so it'll usually, you can cycle it and probably get it running again. That's kind of how I look at these. Like this planter, it is a more precise planter by a long shot than the drill is, but it's still not, I wouldn't say it's as precise as a John Deere planter on like your seed placement, but it will literally plant through anything. This thing will no-till into anything. And so changing these out, like a lot of times on the old one, your trench where your seed is would stay open. You don't get as good seed to dirt contact. Putting these on there, it closes that trench really well. You get great contact, and I got a lot better stands. And I mean, I've planted into some heavy stuff that normally we'd be like, man, you're gonna have to turbo till that or something. Nah, this thing handled it like a champ. So probably every planter that I'll have from now on, I'll be putting these kind of closers on there. I wish they would just come with that from the factory. So the big way this planter kind of works, it's got two bulk fill tanks up there. I think you could see them. But it's got bulk fill. I like bulk fill. They make some that have individual tanks or hoppers on each one. I like the bulk fill. All these hoses run from it. I mean, you know, the individual ones would be easier in a sense that sometimes you have a pain, it's kind of pain in the butt. You'll have a hose that'll get stocked up or something. You got to try to clean it out if you're not getting good seed delivery to each one. They all have their pros and cons. Bulk fill is just easier to fill up. You fill up 2 bulk tanks and it's ready to go. The individual one, you got to fill up each individual one. I'm not sure how many acres you can cover with them. I can cover, with full bulks, I don't remember offhand for sure. I want to say like 50 or 60 acres, maybe more, maybe 80. Obviously it depends on my seed population too, but you can cover a good bit of ground with the bulk tanks full. Now it's heavy. You know, it's going to take, you're going to want a 250 horsepower tractor for this one. You could use a 100, probably 120, 150 horse tractor for this. You just want enough weight on the front end because this thing's heavy when you fill it up. I used to plant with a 45-55 with a drill, and it would pull the front tires off the ground. It would scare the crap out of you. One of the biggest perks to this 1245, you do get a lot more, like I said, the drill controlled spillage. This is a planter. You get a lot more precise planting, space, like seed placement, as far as especially your corn. You get really good precise planting. Beans is a lot better too. I mean, because it uses plates. It's got a plate that runs in there. The seed goes on the plate, and it places it as it's supposed to. Still don't think it's quite as precise as a John Deere. And I kick around the idea of trying out a John Deere planter just because I'm running a green tractor. It would sync up with my software and stuff a lot better. But that thing just plants so good, it's hard for me to get away from it. And I'm familiar with it. I know how to work on this. Unless you just had a ton of money to spend, Probably wouldn't tell you to look at a 1245 to begin. Now here's my dad's. Yeah, it's a 2140. See, this is what most of them come with. Like I said, they're concaved outwards and they're smooth. You don't get near as good closing with that. He's been thinking about going to the jagged wheels like I got. His does have coulters and they're like hydraulic, so you can actually raise them up out of the way or put them down. I've never needed these. I plan in some stuff with good openers. On there, I don't need them. I have thought about putting some Yetter crop devastators on there for cover crop. It'll crimp them as I'm planting it. But, you know, the big thing, you're talking a 1245, you're talking a $100,000 planter versus a, you know, like an $8,000 or $10,000 drill. Now, some people might be wondering, like, why would I not just encourage a guy starting out to go with the drill? And I generally do. I generally just say, you know, start with a 5400, a 20-footer. You don't need as big of a tractor, so you can buy a little cheaper tractor because you don't need as much horsepower to pull it. But I also try to think in a way for growth. You know, if you're getting into farming, you know you want to farm. Let's say your first year you're going to work 150 acres, or 100 acres, 150 acres, 200 acres. You could handle that pretty well with a 20-foot drill. But now, if you're getting in and, you know, you can see the potential that within the next couple years, you could be working upwards of like 800 acres or so, you're going to want something to handle those acres better. And a 20-foot drill, I mean, you could plant that much ground. Guys did it for years, but your efficiency is going to be pretty dead-gum low. And a 1200 case, you could probably find one of those now because they're getting some age on them. You can probably find a 1200 for, I would think, 25 to 30 grand. Now, I know that's a good bit more than 8,000, but at the same time, you're talking, I mean, they make 30 foot. If you got the tractor that can handle it, if you got a 200, 250 horse tractor, you know, get you an older John Deere 8300 or something, I mean, they can handle that, then a 30 to 40 foot planter, you're gonna cover a whole lot more ground. And one of the big things, and I am a believer in running GPS. Now, you don't have to have it, but one of the big things a 1200 is gonna have is section shutoff. And you can save yourself a lot of money in seed. I'm a big believer in section shutoff. Like on that planter, on my 1245, it has row clutches, and it'll shut off rows individually. And so basically, when I'm running GPS and it maps it out, when it knows where I have planted. When I get to a spot that I've planted already, it'll start shutting off as it's overlapping, so it keeps you from double planting. With a drill, you're gonna inevitably double plant quite a bit, like on your ends and stuff like that. It just happens, it just comes with the territory. And a 1200, it has section shut off. It'll shut off like maybe 4 or 8 rows at a time. And even without GPS, you can manually shut them off. So you could do that, but if you get GPS linked up on your tractor, then it'll automatically shut them off. And it is awesome. It is well worth the investment. You know, you don't go crazy, but also don't set yourself up. You don't want to invest a lot of money in equipment that 2 years or 3 years down the road, you're gonna have to sell all of it and try to upgrade to be able to be efficient. I want to kind of be in a position where I've got the equipment to handle what I got and then some. Like I could grow with that. Like right now, I'm farming. This year I lost some acres due to some solar panels and different things coming in. So I'll be working around 1,300 acres. Last year I was working over 1,400, close to 1,500. But I've got the potential to pick up quite a bit of ground in a couple years. I probably have the equipment to handle nearly 2,000 acres. And so I'm trying to stay in that frame. And now the other thing I wanted to talk about is the poor man shed. This is my header sitting out here in the weather. This is my MacDon 35-foot header. And you can see it's got snow on it. And mostly this is due to my own procrastination. Because I figured out last year and this, I gotta order it on Amazon. You can order some gigantic tarps, and they got these brown tarps, and I order a 40 by 20, I believe is the size, and it'll completely cover this header. That's what I did last year. And I came in here, I sprayed fluid film on all my blades, and then I put my tarp over this thing and just bungee cord all up underneath it, hold the tarp on there. I did the same for my corn header. Stuff that's gonna be outside like that, buy you some huge tarps. I mean, people might laugh, but I had a few holes in it come time to use them, but overall, the headers looked about like they did when I parked them and covered them. Like it really helps you out, keeps your stuff out of the weather. And I don't remember, the tarp's probably 150 bucks, 130, 150 bucks. I get the thicker one. It's a good tarp. Now they're pretty well trash probably by the time you get ready to uncover them, just from months of sitting out in the weather. And they get, like, inevitably some stuff will poke holes in them and things, but it really does protect your stuff. Again, I'm slacking, I gotta get this thing covered up. I mean, I know people that just leave their stuff out all year, but when you go to start using it the next year, you always have some stuff that might be froze up or kind of stuck on it. So get you some big tarps, you can cover them up. I'll be doing that. I may try to order them actually later today. Hey, and somebody's thinking, man, 150 bucks for a tarp. Well, it's a lot cheaper than a $40,000 shed. So until I have that shed, I can use a tarp on what is outside in the weather. So that's kind of my philosophy on that. But guys, that's the big thing in this episode. I just really kind of wanted to break down the planter versus the drill. And again, we still use that drill. My dad used it last year for planting beans. You know, you can't plant corn with it. Like if somebody's wanting to do corn and beans, again, go with a 1200. And I love the thing about the case planters in that it's a split planter. Like mine is a 1631. It's 16 rows for corn, 31 for beans. Or if you wanted to do wide row beans, 16 rows. And you just, the rows that you're not using, they fold up. I've really been happy with them. If you get a 1200, your probably biggest thing you're gonna have to deal with is gonna be electrical stuff, because it's got a lot of age on it. And so you might have to fight some electrical things, get some bugs worked out in them. Your center pivot bushing, it is wore out in my planter. This planter, 2018 model, still hadn't been over that many acres, and that thing's wore out. I think it's about a $6,000 repair with H&R or case. That is painful. You can do it yourself, but you basically have to pick the planter up off of this and fix that. And what it does, the bushing, is where it swivels on that center point, and it just wears out. Hey, check it out. It's a dead rat. probably came out of a combine. When you're looking, I just encourage you, kind of also be trying to think a couple steps ahead, like, because you don't want to, most likely if you're getting into this, your goal is probably not to only ever farm 120 acres. You probably want to get up to 1,000 acres or something. Maybe, you know, you might want to make a living as a farmer. So I'm not telling you to go out and finance a 2145 or even a 1245, but kind of look and see what's out there in terms of 1200s. Don't just immediately go with the drill because it's the cheapest. If that drill is all you can afford and all you can make work, then by all means, start with the drill. And I'll even show you another drill here. This is an older, you can get a 30-foot. And I've actually seen a 30, maybe even a 40-foot soybean special. And it kind of folds like this. This is a Great Plains 30-foot. My dad bought this thing at an auction years ago. And you see it swivels around like this. I don't think there's anything wrong with this, but see, part of the magic with those red ones versus like this is you see these openers, they're pretty much side by side, if you understand what I'm saying. Like There's no angle to them. They're side by side. Whereas on those red ones, one's like this, the other one's right here. And that offset opening disc makes it cut through the ground really well. So guys, if you have questions, comment them below. I would love to try to help you out, try to give you a little guidance on whatever I can. Comment that below if you have any questions about, I had a 1200 for years. If you got some questions about that, feel free to ask. Got some questions about the drill. I've run a drill for a long time as well before. So do not hesitate to reach out to me. Just trying to put a little informational video for you guys out today, because again, it's not a whole lot that I can be doing. And I thought, well, we'll be in spring here soon. Somebody might be trying to get a game plan of what they need to be looking for. There's your options, you know. I'm not afraid of a drill, but if I'm thinking about growth, I'd probably be looking at like a 1200 and just seeing what's out there. So guys, comment below any questions you got, anything you'd like for me to cover, topics, movies, anything you want to know. Again, encourage you to check out the podcast to do with my cousin, Talk Dirt to Me. And also, I was just on a podcast with my good friend Ross at the Nomad Strength Show is the name of his show. It's on all the podcast platforms, Spotify. Check it out. I'd love to, y'all could kind of hear another side of me. I do talk a little farming, and then we get off into the weeds on other stuff. So I encourage you to also check that show out. I got some bonus information I want to share that I just thought of. As I was pulling out, I was locking the gate, and I got to thinking, you know what? There's somebody out there when inevitably, if you're asking for advice on equipment or something, that they're probably going to tell you, man, you need to avoid a red planter or a red drill because red stuff just doesn't have as good of resale value. And first, they're right. And I know that there is some Case fanboys that'll be really mad to hear me say that. Look, I just sold a red tractor, and I kind of took a beating on it. But I can tell you that it's true. When you get to looking at used equipment, I mean, all equipment is expensive these days, but you get to looking at used equipment, red stuff historically sells cheaper than green. Green just holds its resale value better. Don't worry about it. You're not getting into this to sell equipment, you're getting into this to farm. It's actually to your benefit that it doesn't hold its resale value as good, because then that means maybe you can get it cheaper. Get what you need to farm and get what you're going to use. Don't be getting it and then say, well, wait a minute, this is a good deal on this planter, but 6 years from now or 8 years from now, if I go to sell it, I'm just not going to make any money. Dude, you're trying to start farming. Don't worry about the resale value on your planter or your drill. Like, just get what you need to farm and get after it. Take care.